Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are uncovering the hidden science, the massive economics, and the honestly quite ruthless protocols behind those famous five-star vehicle safety ratings. You know, whenever we're looking at buying a new car, those safety stars are right there, front and center. But what actually happens behind the closed doors of a testing facility to earn them? From multi-million-dollar technological mannequins to the nuanced differences between international and domestic safety standards, we're going to break the whole thing down for you. Okay. Let's just dive right into this. Here is our roadmap. We're going to start with the anatomy of the crash test itself, then meet the crash dummies, look at the jaw-dropping price of all this destruction, compare global NCAP with India's Bharat NCAP, and finally unpack what those 5 stars actually mean for you out on the road.
All right, Section 1, Anatomy of a Crash Test. Let's look at the rigorous protocols.
So we're starting with the physical destruction. These are highly controlled, incredibly violent environments where brand new vehicles just meet their sudden end. And I really want to pose this question directly to you. What does a crash test actually look like? If you've ever scrolled through Reddit and seen those viral videos of modern cars getting tested, you know it's a completely brutal, visceral event. Metal crumples, glass shatters, airbags explode in literal milliseconds. But the thing is, it's not random violence. It is highly calculated destruction designed to absolutely prove or disprove a vehicle's safety credentials.
And the testing protocols?
They are ruthless. Step 1 is this frontal offset crash at exactly 64 kilometers per hour. Now, why 64? Well, because that perfectly simulates the physics of 2 cars hitting each other head-on in the real world. Then, step 2 is a side impact crash at 50 kilometers per hour, which simulates getting T-boned right at an intersection. And step 3, the pole impact at 29 kilometers per hour. This replicates a car sliding sideways into a tree or a telephone pole, which is honestly one of the most deadly scenarios imaginable. All of these specific speeds and angles, they're designed to push the car's structural limits to the absolute brink. Moving right along to Section 2, meet the crash dummies, the real, unsung heroes of this whole process. Now that we've seen the crashes, let's peek at the fascinating technology sitting inside the car during those terrifying milliseconds. What's truly fascinating here is the market breakdown of these devices. Adult dummies definitely dominate the market at 63%, but take a look at that 37% for child and infant dummies. Driven by some very strict new mandates from global regulators, the industry's heavily pivoting to protect the most vulnerable passengers. We now have these highly specific Q-series dummies representing newborns, infants, and toddlers, testing everything from rear-facing car seats to how a seatbelt fits across a child's shoulder. And guys, these are definitely not those cheap plastic mannequins you'd see at a clothing store. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how fast this tech is evolving. We have standard dummies, which are pretty basic and mechanical, then your hybrid dummies that gather moderate biomechanical data. But the industry is rapidly shifting toward advanced biofidelic models. Take the Thor dummy, for example. This thing is literally engineered to mimic human bone and tissue, packed with over 150 sensors that measure chest deflection, pelvic forces, and spinal impacts with just incredible detail. And because of this extreme level of sophistication, the global crash test dummy market is projected to reach an absolutely staggering $169.6 million by 2035. Creating highly accurate models that represent females, the elderly, and different body types is a massive, massive economic engine. Which perfectly sets up Section 3, the price of destruction. Let's talk about the economics of safety. Because all of this high-tech science carries a really hidden, hefty financial burden for the automakers. Prepare yourselves for some serious sticker shock here. 2.5 crore rupees. That is the estimated cost for an automaker to conduct just one single overseas crash test. Between shipping the cars, booking the specialized facility, calibrating millions of dollars worth of dummies, and crunching the data, validating safety is incredibly expensive. But let's look at how things are shifting in India right now. Check out the economic relief provided by the new domestic Bharat NCAP program. By doing the testing locally, that cost drops from 2.5 crore rupees to roughly 60 lakh rupees. I mean, that is a total game changer. It makes safety validation significantly more accessible for manufacturers building cars for the Indian market, and it actively encourages them to test way more models across their entire lineup. But actually, we can't forget the ultimate sacrifice here, because on top of that 60 lakh testing fee, the manufacturer is permanently destroying a brand new vehicle. It doesn't get a nice repair job, it literally goes straight to the scrap heap. When a company tests multiple variants for all those frontal, side, and pole impacts we talked about, they are willfully destroying tens of thousands of dollars worth of fresh inventory just to prove to you that it's safe to buy.
All right, Section 4, Global versus Bharat NCAP. Let's understand exactly what these standards are.
So, with India now running its own testing facilities, how does the homegrown Bharat NCAP actually compare to the famous global NCAP? Let's take a completely impartial look at the facts. They both use largely similar crash speeds and protocols, but there are some really nuanced differences. Global NCAP is a fully independent organization. They use a 34-point scale for adult protection, handing out bonus points for things like seatbelt reminders. And they actually source cars randomly from dealerships, kind of like a secret shopper. Bharat NCAP, on the other hand, is government-backed. It uses a 32-point scale because things like seatbelt reminders are already considered mandatory base requirements there, not bonus points. And crucially, Bharat NCAP relies on voluntary submission, meaning the automakers choose to send their cars in. There's another pretty key difference in how they present the final results. Global NCAP prominently flags a specific metric called body shell integrity. And this makes a lot of sense because, think about it. A car might score decent points if its 6 airbags pop out perfectly to cushion the dummies. But if the actual metal cage around the passengers crumbles, Global NCAP flags that body shell as unstable. It reveals deeper structural weaknesses that no airbag can ever really fix. Now, Bharat NCAP definitely measures those exact same physical forces, but their consumer labels just tend to focus a bit more on the unified star rating, rather than heavily highlighting that stable or unstable body shell classification. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, Unlocking the 5 stars, and what it really means for you. So now that we understand the brutal tests, the advanced dummies, the crazy costs, and the specific standards, what do these ratings actually mean when you walk onto a dealership lot? Well, automakers are clearly responding to us, the consumers, demanding better safety. And this brilliantly illustrates the real-world impact. We're seeing models like the Tata Punch and Mahindra XUV 700 easily hitting 5 stars in global NCAP, and the new Skoda Karoq just secured 5 stars in the Bharat NCAP. Regardless of who is doing the testing, it is just an undeniable fact that modern cars are structurally far safer than vehicles from even just 10 years ago.
However, I do want you to take this quote to heart. A 5-star rating indicates strong performance under controlled lab conditions, but it doesn't mean a car is completely invincible on the real road. The lab is, at the end of the day, a highly controlled environment. It absolutely does not replicate a 100-kilometer-per-hour chaotic highway crash, a multi-vehicle pileup, or a terrible collision with a massive commercial truck. Plus, remember that a 5-star compact hatchback just does not offer the same mass and physical protection as a 5-star heavy SUV in a real-world crash. The rating is a super crucial baseline for sure, but it's not a magic force field. Which leaves us with this final thought. Between those 150 sensor dummies, the million-dollar testing labs, and all these strict government protocols, we have essentially perfected the science of the crash. The metal and the silicon, they are doing their jobs. But all the active safety features and structural warnings in the world won't save us if we just aren't paying attention. We've perfected the car. Now, how do we perfect the driver? Definitely something to think about the next time you get behind the wheel. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.